I'm gonna be honest, we're 10 months into this stay-at-home quarantine pandemic, and I have put on some weight. I'm Leslie from L Squared Crafts. Welcome back to my channel. Let's make some pants. None of my pants are fitting right now. I can't go to the stores. I could go to the stores. I could shop online, and I have. But when it gets here, it's never quite what I wanted. It doesn't fit where I want it to fit. It's not the fabrics that I wanted. And I didn't make it myself. I have time. I should make things myself. So I set out to make a pair of pants. I've chosen So Liberated's Aeronite pants because it is a beginner-friendly, generous-sized pattern that leaves a lot of budge room for a beginner sewist like myself. I'm putting a link in the description below. They don't know I'm doing this. They don't, like most of the universe, don't know I exist. Please like and subscribe. When you buy the pattern, and you're gonna buy the pattern, you will see that you wanna have it printed. You can either print it at home and tape the pieces together, or you can do what I did, send it to a print shop and have them print it. But I recommend that regardless of how you print it, you're mindful to print it at actual size. If you don't, they'll print it however they want, and you'll end up with something that isn't right. So maybe sometime I will make a pair of pants that are this big, but I wanted them for me. You cut out your pattern pieces, you sew it all together, and it's a really quick and easy fun sew. Enjoy this tutorial. On the side panels, we're going to start by applying the pockets, and the first thing you want to do is take one side panel and one facing panel and put them right sides together. Now I've put this masking tape on my the front of my fabric. You can clearly see which is the front and which is the back, but one I wanted to be sure I knew what these panels were called. And also too, I plan to make this pattern with some fabric that doesn't, with some like linen fabric, and you can't tell which is the front and which is the back. So it's a good habit to get into, to just mark the front and the back. So I'm pinning this on, and then we're gonna sew around this edge. The next step is to do something that I have never done before, which is to sew a French seam. Anyway, to sew the French seam on the pocket, you're going to take wrong sides together. You want to sew wrong sides together first, and then you kind of flip it the right way and sew right sides together to encapsulate the seam. So I'm going to turn this facing up so that the wrong side is exposed. I want the bottom of my pocket piece wrong side together with that facing piece. And then I'm gonna pin those together. We're just gonna sew along this edge, and then we'll flip it the other direction and sew right next to that to encase those raw edges. something that looks like this now, with your side panel, the pocket facing, and the pocket, all with your nice French seam all enclosed. And what you're gonna do now is you're gonna take the top of this and you're gonna bring it to the top of this, and you're gonna get all 3 pieces of fabric. You want the side panel, the facing panel, and the pocket panel to line up here. Pin them together. You're gonna pin down this side, and you're gonna pin down this side, and it's gonna make this big little kangaroo pouch pocket. It's gonna be really, really cute. We're gonna sew just based in the seam allowance right here. So now we're going to sew the side panel to the back panel. The pattern tells you explicitly how to determine which side goes with which back, but I'm not going to divulge that secret because you got to buy the pattern. Anyway, we're going to sew these wrong sides together at a 5/8 inch seam, and we're going to turn that into a flat felled seam, which I will show you after I've done this. So just pin these wrong sides together. We're going to sew this long seam, and we'll be back. 5/8 seam allowance is clearly marked on my throat plate, but I'm a bit of an idiot sometimes when I'm sewing and I'm concentrating. So I put the tape there to help me, because now we're getting to the part where they're not going to fit if I have the wrong seam allowance. So I want them to fit. I've worked this hard. Just want to make sure my fabric's not getting all bunched up under there. We're going to trim down the pocket side, so the side panel, mostly to get rid of some of this bulk. But so I've separated the seam here. We're going to trim down this side to about half of its width, and then we'll fold this piece over and over again, and then we're going to sew that down to make a little detail. So like I said, on the side panel side, the side with the pocket, you're going to split the seam open, and you're going to trim down this side of the seam to about half of its width, about 1/4 inch. Be careful not to cut your pants on the other side of this, which I may have just done. Okay, this is going to be painful to watch, so I'm going to leave you to it. All right, so I have trimmed down the seam on the side panel side. Next, we're going to fold the longer side over and then over again to hide any raw edges. And it's going to be flat against the side panel. I don't know if you can see that. But you want to, sorry, my length issue is presenting itself. You want to hold that down like that. Then we're going to sew along this pinned edge at about 1/8 inch, or as close to that edge as you can get, and you're going to have this nice flat felled seam. Alright, you should now have 2 legs. The inseam should all be sewn up and finished off either using your serger or your zigzag like I did. You're going to turn one leg inside out and one leg right side out, and then you're going to place the right side out inside this leg so that they are right sides together. Then we're going to sew up this crotch area. All right, these matched up pretty easily. If I had transferred the pattern properly, there would have been notches. But the main thing that you want to match up are these inseam seams right at the crotch there. You don't want those misaligned. That will not feel right. Also, while I'm here and I have them inside each other, I'm going to take care of the inconsistency in my length so that when I hem them, they'll be the same length. Now I'm going to trim this seam down to about 1/4 inch. Here's your waistband. It is attached in the front. Well, it is attached on one side with a nice seam that you're not going to see. Now we got to fold it, and this is where if you were able to press it, you'll be golden. But for me on this fabric, I just have to kind of start going and then work it around to make sure that it stays. So you're gonna want to fold about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch over, making sure you still have enough to put your elastic in. And then you're gonna fold this down, covering that line of stitching that you just sewed. You want this to go past that because you're gonna sew it from the other side, and you want to be sure you catch this edge. So you're just gonna go around and pin this down like this. Be sure to leave yourself a little gap that you don't sew so you can feed your elastic through. All right, we are supposed to stitch in the ditch. If you've ever seen people who know what they're doing, you can sew on the front side right where you sewed before and catch this back side. But I am not that good, and I don't care. I don't think you're gonna see it if, you know, it's not gonna bother me if you see a row of stitches in my puckered up waistband, and I'd rather only do it once. So, and I'm a little nervous to sew over pins, which you also have to do when you stitch over the ditch, stitch in the ditch, excuse me. So I'm doing it this way from the back side, and I'm just going to do it as close as I can right there. You want to make sure to back stitch at the beginning and the end, and leave yourself, I code my pins. The red ones means don't sew here. So all of them are green until I get to the red ones, and then I know how to stop so that I'll have a hole to put my elastic in. Because I did not sew from the front, I have some issues here where you can see my stitching. It should be right in this groove right here. Some places not so bad, but by the time it's, you know, all runched up with the elastic, no one's gonna see it. Once you close up the hole for the elastic band, then all that's left to do is hem them. And I am excited because I'm gonna get to use my rolled hem foot. Now I am not gonna videotape myself using this foot because I am not very good at it. Imagine how bad that must be. And you probably won't learn much from watching me do this. I have decided I'm gonna try this foot, and if it doesn't work, then I'm just gonna do a traditional straight hem. But once you've hemmed your pants, they are done. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks a bunch, and I'll see you next time at L Squared Crafts.